It's windy today, so I'm gonna keep this short. You fucker. There's a gnat in my coffee. I'm gonna show you a quick trick on how to keep bamboo upright if it's tall enough and you have either a chain link fence or a wood fence like this, a wood panel fence. I kind of like to keep small, about half-inch gaps between the fence if I can when I build it. I'm also going to quickly show you some sunburn on bamboo. It actually does not typically kill the bamboo depending on the variety, but what I did this year is put about 1.5 inches to 2 inches of pine needle mulch to help hold in the water. Under the pine needle mulch there is some leaves and branches from last year that I also threw down. I may throw in a layer of like grass clippings, I haven't decided yet. Last year I built this barrier to keep animals out. When I planted this guy, I planted a second stalk about the same size as this guy, and it died. This one lived. They were on separate rhizomes, and 2 years ago they put up some babies. The babies were eaten completely by animals. Last year I didn't get any babies. I don't know if it was because the summer was super hot and he didn't get enough water. But this year his rhizomes should be established enough to put up some babies. I also have been trying to reestablish this small area. It's maybe 4 feet by 2 feet. So I put in several rhizome cuttings. Depending on if they stay wet enough, they should put up new shoots. If not, I have some backup rhizomes I can always put in. So we will see how that goes. Let's take a look at the sunburn. So when bamboo gets a lot of sun and not enough water, what typically happens is you'll get the dry shriveling leaves. That's normal if they get a lot of sun and not enough water. This guy is stunted. You can see the leaves on this guy, and you may not know because depending on the variety, some varieties get smaller leaves as it is. This guy's leaves are only 2 inches or less, which is actually not normal for this variety. It's incense bamboo, Philostachys astrovaginata congesta, I believe is the scientific name. The leaves are usually double the size in length and about the same size in width. But you can see some of the summer burn, and some of this is also due to frost damage. The end right here, if it focuses, is dead, the last like 3 inches, which is fine. I may prune it, I may leave it. A new branch is right, if I can get in close enough, you can see new branches coming in, and it's not gonna focus. There we go, a little bit. Those little spike things that look like thorns, those are actually new branches forming. They may also just be new leaves. It kind of depends. It's still, here's a good example actually. If we can get it on camera, right where my fat fucking finger is, those will be new branches, which will hopefully put out at least 2 leaves each. So those are coming in. They haven't opened yet. We are in the first week of May, so they should be opening anytime now. As long as I keep the ground more moist, the branching and bushing out will look a little bit better. Due to some of the sunburn shock though, and the rhizomes still developing, it may not bush as much as I want this year. But like I said, if I can keep it moist enough under the new layer of mulch, it will do a lot better. It will get fertilized about every 3 weeks to kick off the spring, and after that it will probably drop down to once a month. Let's take a look at some of the other sunburn. You can see on this branch this dark shading, and I guess I should mention the branch is yellow. That doesn't mean it's going to die. A lot of bamboo has yellowing branches. That's just normal for depending on the variety. This variety, the branching normally stays green if it has plenty of water and evening shade. And the yellowing on this variety, unlike varieties that do turn yellow, like Golden Grove, there's several others that I'm not super deep into yet because it depends on what grows in northern Utah where I'm at. So this one is yellow, partly because it got dry the last 2 summers. I do kind of limit this one on water just because I try to conserve water where I can. I also water my main grove a little bit more than this. So we have the yellowing, which is normal given the conditions. It gets a little bit of filtered shade in the morning hours, but midday to evening it's basically in direct sunlight, and then the very end of the evening it does get more direct light. I mean more shade, sorry. So that's kind of tore this guy up. On this same branch I was just showing you, if we go down, let's get up a little closer, see this blackening right here? The gray, it kind of turns black, turns brown, all the way down. This branch faces south, and the south facing is what has got burnt. The other side of the branch is fine. If you come clear out to the end, it's almost completely black. But bamboo branches grow different than a normal tree branch would, in that you can see the leaves are still alive on that same area where it turned black. The outside is not as important as the inside on bamboo. Obviously on a normal tree, the inside is still important, travels, photosynthesis travels that way. Sometimes nutrients can be absorbed through the leaves itself if you spray them with magnesium, some foliage fertilizer. And then in all of the yellowing where you would think it's dry, the branches are still fairly bushy and new leaves and new branches are forming. But on bamboo, a lot of water and a lot of nutrients stays inside, and the outside feels considerably different. You don't have as much fibrous material on bamboo branches as you would a normal tree. So that means if the outside is burnt and tore up from the wind and you know, sometimes even animals, the leaves will still live because the water is traveling up inside, and as it gets thicker, the outside actually protects the inside even more. So that's a significant difference. You can't really think of bamboo the same as a tree. So for example, this trunk, or I guess what you would normally call a trunk on a regular tree, is also considerably different on a bamboo. It's called a stalk. Some people will continue calling it a shoot, but a shoot is actually for the babies when they first shoot up. Sometimes they're called canes. That's technically not accurate either. A cane is oftentimes for grass, sugarcane family, reeds, that sort of thing. Maybe even corn, I'm not sure. I don't know what it's called. No, I think corn is actually considered a stalk. But let's take a look at the main stalk. So you can see another south-facing branch is fried, but the leaves are still okay. In fact, all of the south-facing branches are blackened. On the other side, they're still green or they're still yellow. This one's south-facing and it's gotten fried. The interesting thing to note is the south-facing leaves are fine. They're still green, maybe a little burnt at the tips, but they are forming leaves still on the south-facing side. So they're still fine. If you look at the trunk, you can see some splotching and brown, light brown, tan, black, maybe some stuff that looks a little gray. It's not infected. On a normal tree, you would think this is infected. This is all sunburn. It's not an infection. The trunk, sorry, I literally just said don't call it a trunk. The stalk will yellow too. Just like the branches, if it gets a lot of sunburn, not enough water, you know, gets the roots and the rhizome get dry. But clear down here, you can actually see a little bit of the vibrant green forming on new leaves. So the guy's healthy, he's waking up. It's the first week of May, where he is not in the ideal place, and his roots and rhizome haven't been taken care of as much as I wanted to. He is waking up a little slower. My grove has some brand new vibrant green leaves. It's not quite time to shoot out new rhizomes yet for my main grove. That usually happens in about 1 to 2 weeks from now. I'll start seeing babies pop up. This guy may be a little slower for the babies as well. Depending on the conditions, I'll start watering it pretty regularly, probably this week. I'm gonna fertilize every 3 weeks for the whole spring, for at least 2 months, maybe even 3 months, and then after that I'll drop back to once a month. because they do love heavy feeding. It's not required, but it definitely helps. Clear down to the very bottom, it got sunburned about 2 years ago before I built this animal barrier around it. And the barrier is about 1.5 feet tall, and that's enough to keep animals out, small animals, dogs, that kind of thing. Let me show you a trick on keeping bamboo standing straight. If you have a chain link fence, a wood fence, obviously it won't work for like a privacy vinyl type of fence. I call these sacrifice branches. You can see this branch going through the fence right there. On most of my fences, I prefer to do anywhere from like 1/4 inch to 3/4 inches between. Unfortunately, this one has a few gaps that are more like, not quite an inch, but really close. But that's okay. This fence is actually temporary. So this is my sacrifice branch. Let me pull it out real quick. You can see it actually is alive. There's enough forking in the branch, the very tip is dead. There's enough forking in the branch where I can just tuck it through the slab, and the fork on the other side will hold it in place. If the wind gets extremely bad, which it has been a few times this year, it will pull the branch out and then it will get stuck sideways, but we want to keep it in an upright growth pattern. This stalk is mature to where it's not going to get any taller. In fact, this guy's about 8 feet, same exact size when I transplanted it. You can go to the very top, and right here, you may not be able to see it around the canopy tree, right there, the tip is dead. Really, that's dieback from the winter. So it conserves all of its energy more and more and more as it works its way down, clear down into the rhizome, where a lot of the energy is actually stored. That's why they put up new shoots, because there's enough energy there that's not only how they reproduce, but that's how they survive. So that's about it. Use a sacrifice branch. If you get burning, sunburn, dry leaves, some leaves falling off, burnt leaves, that kind of stuff, a little bit of tip dieback, it's nothing to be concerned with right away. It's mostly sunburn. It could be some drought, dry damage. Normally, at least this variety, incense bamboo, is hard to kill through any sort of infection. The rhizomes may be able to get rotten, but the only time you typically see rotted rhizomes is in early spring. If you get a lot of wet, muddy, rainy weather, some of the rhizome tips, if you even care about following the rhizomes, which I do because I sell rhizome cuttings, if you harvest them early in the spring, about March, you'll often notice the ends of the rhizomes where they travel can get super soft. That usually means they're rotten. But other than that, infection is really low in bamboo. Bamboo is possibly my favorite plant because it's so versatile. It's so strong, and depending on where you live, it can grow. There are places, Alaska, Canada, there are places where it's really hard to get anything except hedge and small landscape bamboo to live. In northern Utah, where I live, I'm kind of close to the Idaho border, so I'm pretty high. I am right near mountains on the east of me. I'm near a flat desert, valley, lake, so I get a lake effect in the winter, so I get heavy winters. The coldest I remember getting, I think, was about 2 years ago. We dipped down to -16 degrees Fahrenheit right here in my backyard. In the summer, every summer we reach about 110. Last summer I remember hitting 100 and I think it was 114. So we do get some major days in both the winter and the summer that you would not think bamboo would survive, but that's why it's so important to protect the rhizome as much as possible with mulch, heavy mulch. You want to fertilize because that's going to help store extra nutrients in the rhizome, and that helps it both in the winter by keeping it insulated, but it helps in summer by holding in that water on those extremely hot days. I am hoping to buy a couple new varieties of bamboo. I expanded my garden, so it just depends. I have found at least 3 new varieties that will grow in my area. It's all going to be an experiment. This experiment, ever since 2017 when I started, almost 5 years ago, about 4.5 years ago, has been an extreme success. So let's wrap it up there. Everyone keep it easy. I need a new tagline. So yeah, this is Growing to Live. Let's get it.